Welcome to Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Today, friends, we have another exciting guest on our podcast like we tend to. This individual is named James Mills, and he's running for Lieutenant Governor with the Libertarian Party in the great state of Ohio. So welcome to the podcast, James.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. I know Don and I really appreciate the chance to come on your guys' show, and really excited to share our message with the rest of your audience.
Great. We are looking forward to hearing what you got to say. So in Ohio, where are you located? My parents met in Ohio, so it's an interesting state for me.
Really? Oh, so I'm from Cincinnati, and I know Don's from Ottawa. So we kind of have most of the state covered. Where did your parents meet?
Cleveland.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it's funny. We always talk about like the 3 C's. So I got some family up that way, but
Great.
Travel up that line, the Cincinnati, Columbus, Cleveland line.
So James, please tell us about yourself. Please give us a brief biographical sketch of yourself.
Yeah. So personally, I've been married to my high school sweetheart for about 6 years now. We got 2 little ones at home. I've been working in finance for probably the last 10-ish years. And now I would probably characterize myself more as a serial entrepreneur because I work with a lot of small business owners and like chambers of commerce and incubators and small business hubs to bring employee benefits. And then on the side, I also do floor covering and more construction. Me and my brother run a side company for that. And then I help my sister with a nonprofit called S'more Coats, where we distribute coats to the homeless. And she also runs a food truck. And so we're all, unfortunately, here in the Mills family, we're all very entrepreneurial, but there's no rest for the wicked, of course, so we don't get much sleep.
Sounds like it.
Oh, yeah, it's great. But I got involved with the Libertarian Party a couple years ago on the local scale from my Warren County where I live. And it kind of bubbled up because I started seeing some stuff, some inefficiencies within the party, and so I started.
Oh no.
As soon as you probably know, right? Like as soon as you start volunteering for things, people start volunteering you things for, and so it became a conversation where I started to lead the Warren County, and then was vice chair of Ohio for the last 2 years until I stepped down to help run this race with Don. So we're very excited because we're kind of breathing new life into Ohio with the libertarian movement, and so it's a cause we're really excited to champion.
Great. It's awesome that all the stuff you got going that you described to us, on top of that, you're having something else that's very high maintenance, running a campaign for lieutenant governor.
Oh, isn't that the truth? We've been all across that. So last night I was in Athens, which is a 3-hour drive roughly, and week before we were in Cleveland actually. So mentioning Cleveland, and then next weekend's Franklin. The following weekend is Warren, and on top of that, we're also going to as many like local events and stuff like town halls and candidate get-togethers from all parties, not just the Libertarian Party. So you're not lying. It's my wife is not happy with me right now. So
Oh no. So what are the big issues in this campaign that you're bringing forth, that you're addressing?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking. I think so. Don and I really have characterized our campaign around 3 main issues, and I'll kind of expand on those. But the first issue is anti-corruption, which I know everybody talks about. But we're really wanting to foster an environment where lobbying is frowned upon. So we want to issue some executive orders around politicians not being able to be a lobbyist for 5 years after leaving office. We also want to have a publicly searchable database for government contracts. And where money's essentially going. And so that's another huge thing, especially recently in Ohio. We had an HB6 scandal, which was where Duke Energy, one of the local utility monopolies, had one of their subsidiary companies, First Energy, funneling money to politicians, and there was a lot of people who went to jail over that. So it's a very local issue that we're finding within the state of Ohio, even outside of the gerrymandering conversation, which we're very notorious here in Ohio with the gerrymandering issue. The second main issue is affordability. So I know Don and I talk a lot about the abolishing property tax movement that's going on in Ohio, and there's a lot of stuff to kind of break down in that. But we're very in favor, of course, as libertarians, of abolishing most tax principles, and there's conversations to be had about how to do that in a wise way. But second aspect is for small businesses. We talk quite a bit about deregulation to the smaller businesses, so that it's easier for me as a small business owner to go get my licenses and my CE. And on the flip side, one of the things that we're addressing with the abolished property tax aspect is so much of our revenue goes here in Ohio to corporate subsidies to like large scale enterprises. And so again, that's a conversation that if you start to eliminate some of the corporate subsidies, again, that's going to start putting more money back into the pockets of the small business owner. On top of that, for this affordability and the small business aspect, as I mentioned, I talk to a lot of like small business incubators and business ecosystems. And one of the things I've really loved about like the state of Kentucky, because I'm just a stop and stone throw over the river for that, they have a very collaborative small business ecosystem. And so we talk a lot regarding like how they've built these like privatized innovation hubs through small business incubators. And there's a lot of small business incubators across in Kentucky that collaborate with each other in a regional aspect. And so we're very big proponents of creating a model similar to that here in Ohio.
Okay.
And then the last main topic that he and I are really talking about goes back to personal dignity. And this is kind of a wider swath because there's so much we could talk about. We got so much going on here in Ohio with marijuana recently being legal, and now bureaucrats are coming into that. You can talk about ending qualified immunity, which is an amendment that we're working towards. You can have the conversation of an amendment with the Ohio Equal Rights, where they're strengthening laws regarding protecting language in Ohio for if gay marriage gets overturned on the nationwide scale. But I think the biggest thing he and I are really talking about is one, ICE, because Springfield's 20 minutes up the road from me, right? So it's very close to home. And so we've been working with local leadership across many of the different anti-authoritarian and anti-authoritarian coalitions and nonprofits across the state to really try to limit the presence that ICE has been having in the state.
Okay.
So we're trying to build a lot of infrastructure around that to say, hey, everyone's kind of chasing their own tail, I think is the best way to word what's going on with the ICE situation. And so everyone's trying to recreate their own protests and no one's really marching together. And so we're trying to unify these 60, 70 different organizations that are in Ohio to say, hey, you should march at the same beat. And then the last thing, and sorry for the long-windedness, but the last thing is the Epstein aspect. Wexner, of course, as I'm sure you know, like Wexner was a very big proponent here in Ohio, where like you go to Columbus and his name's plastered on a bunch of different buildings for OSU, and there's student associations and stuff coming up and saying, hey, we're not a fan of that because Wexner, of course, was a co-collaborator with Epstein. And we talk a lot about that because it is kind of a conversation where it's like, hey, this is kind of a spiritual war between the saved and the damned. And, we how do you do this in a way where, you talk against this moral depravity that is being found from these Epstein files? And it's something that, Don and I feel very, very strongly that we need to make a stance on it. and especially with it being so close to home, who better than us? And so,
Oh, sure.
so yeah, that's my long-winded way of saying we got a lot going on, luckily and unfortunately, and it's definitely been kind of an uphill battle and a lot of travel. But Don and I kind of said when we first originally wanted to run that we got tired of picking our poison, and why not try to be the antidote?
There you go. There you go. So in regards to ICE, you're, like most sensible people, sounds like you're against them. So my question is, what do you think the ideal immigration policy should be, since that is not the ideal immigration policy, it sounds like to you?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you asked. And it's hard because for the race that I'm running, right, there's only certain types of powers that I would have as governor and lieutenant governor for Don and I. But if I had the power, and this is something I talk a lot about, is if I had a magic wand, the way that I would probably work is I'm not against immigration. Personally, I see no real issue with people coming across the borders, especially because there's a lot of taxation that's coming from that. You're also seeing typically better communities, and it's not nearly as bad of people as what you're hearing within the news. But personally, the way that I've really talked about this is if we start to pool a lot of the funding from these other countries that these immigrants are fleeing from, right? I think that's really the key, is you can take that money and start making it easier for people towards the path towards citizenship, so that it doesn't take 10 years, 20 years to become a legal citizen within the United States. It's kind of that notion of, if I have I liken this to the neighbor argument, right? Like, let's say I have a neighbor who, if I have this neighbor who his kid keeps coming over my house and I have to feed his kid, I'm okay with feeding his kid, but that doesn't mean I'm going to continue to give my neighbor $100 here and there to make ends meet for him. I'll keep feeding his kid. I'm taught to treat the foreigner as I would anybody else, right? But the flip side is I can't continue to put myself into debt to pay for his debt, and you take that notion and you're like, all right, well, what about the offenders for those who are undocumented here? And there is a conversation to be had of like an infraction-based system where you look at, for anyone committing a misdemeanor, here you get 3 misdemeanors, you got to work with a parole officer towards path towards citizenship. If you aren't working towards your path towards citizenship, after we've already made it easier for you to get that path towards citizenship, then maybe we can talk about deportation. Or if you're a felony offender, okay, that would make sense for deportation, right? But I think the real aspect is, and this is kind of the theme of that idea, is it's due diligence and due process for all.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if I'm undocumented versus if I'm undocumented or if I'm a citizen, the due process should be the same, right? And that's kind of where the argument or that infraction-based system would be. But
Okay.
I do realize that the powers of the governor might not be the path towards creating that, though there is an argument that you could kind of, as a leader, breed culture within, your congressional candidates across the state towards something like that.
Okay.
But that's kind of where my idea would be.
Okay. So how about ICE itself? So as a governor, some of the governors, it sounds like they're resisting ICE, and they don't want ICE in their state. And it sounds like you also would in the same position. So how would you get rid of ICE with the powers of the governor? Or the governor?
That's a great question. Really, it's a matter of not cooperating with them. I don't have to give over my police force because, again, as governor, lieutenant governor, in regards to the immigration policy, that you have a little more limitations on what you can do, right? Like I can say, hey, I'm not using I'm not going to use my police officers for you, and I'm not going to require the states or the towns or the cities to work with ICE. And it's not like it would still be a conversation where, hey, I believe in the sanctuary city aspect. And so I know governors' powers have that ability to say, hey, this is a sanctuary city, right? But on the flip side, there's also the conversation of like National Guard being like using the resources from the National Guard, which is the largest power that is imbued for the governor when it comes to this ICE conversation, is using the National Guard's resources for ICE purposes, and that's not something I would be comfortable in doing as governor and lieutenant governor, you know?
Okay. That sounds like a good approach, using the powers you have to deal within what you can do, your circle of influence. So that sounds good.
Yeah, but to your point, I think, and this is one of the biggest foundational points that I love to make, is that it's less about going about it from the political standpoint, and it's more about the cultural change, right?
Okay.
So if I can imbue and empower an environment where the people, and this is going to be true for almost every policy we're talking about, and this is, of course, coming from the libertarian lens, but where again the individual is the power. But when you look at all of this, it all stems from the individual, and it stems from the locale, right?
Okay.
It's the people who are in these communities that are actually making a change. And so if I can, one, work with the nonprofits, the coalitions, and all of the organizations for ICE, for anti-authoritarianism, for anti-surveillance, some of the things that are really hot topic right now, I can lead in a way that, though it's not initiating political change directly through policies that we're enabling, you're empowering the community to do so by itself, right? And so like that ability to affect change through narrative, I think, is one of the strongest aspects. But then you look at the second point, right? And this is, I think, the most important aspect of our conversation is we as a third party, we recognize that we have a tremendous uphill battle, especially one like Ohio right now between Vivek Ramaswamy and Amy Acton. We're one of the largest fundraising states right now within the country for the governor race.
Okay.
And it's not like Don and I have that kind of money, and nor would we want to take a lot of the donations that they're getting. But I say that because, again, as I kind of mentioned, we got tired of picking our poison, and so it's like, all right, well, how do I do this where I can inspire others? And so we're using our voice quite a bit right now to say, like, hey, the way you affect change is on the local scale, and it bubbles up. I'm going to call my county commissioner. I'm going to call my state rep. I'm going to call, the local and tell them, hey, I don't like how you guys are handling the Wexner. I'm not a fan of how you guys are handling the First Energy scandal. I'm not a fan of how you're handling ICE. And so that county commissioner is 100% more likely to call you back than Mike DeWine, the sitting governor, is, and if that county commissioner is hearing it enough, he's going to push it up, and they're going to push it up. And then from there, you're kind of having this bubble up effect where you're impacting change just by starting local. You've changed the entire country,
Wow.
And so it's something that I'm a very bad Christian. I'm going to tell you this. We only go on Christmas and Easter, and on Christmas, I'm sure you guys sing Silent Night, right? Silent Night, you light a candle before you start singing, and I can use my candle to light my wife's. I can use my candle to light my daughter's. I can light my neighbors, my friends, my family. That one candle can light thousands. And I think the very poignant aspect of this is that one candle can be blown away. Thousands can withstand the wind. You
Oh,
know,
wow.
and if I can light one more person's candle through what we're doing with our campaign, that's that bubble up I'm talking about.
Awesome.
You're inspiring change and impacting the state in a way that will long withstand even this race alone. You know what I mean?
Yes. So how can our audience help you in your efforts to light all those candles?
Can I say that one more time, sorry?
So how can our audience help you in your efforts to light each candle?
No, I appreciate that. Just share us on Facebook, share us on TikTok. I think that's the key. Don
Okay.
Kissick for governor, James Mills for lieutenant governor. Kissick, our TikTok is Kissick/Mills for Ohio. Spread the message, share it with everybody. And the flip side is when we have this conversation regardless of if you're in Ohio or across the country, start calling your local leaders. Start
There you go.
trying to impact a change, even if it's just, you went out and you had a conversation with your dad or your neighbor or someone who just disagrees with you. The first step in loving thy neighbor is actually going out to meet them. And having that open dialogue is really going to be the key in spreading any message that we're trying to share.
Sure. James, I thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule to talk to us today. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we really appreciated it. And, really looking forward to listening in on the podcast and sharing you guys on our pages also.
Wonderful. We wish you all the best in your campaign and also everything else you do in your personal and professional life.
Hey, thank you so much. You too.